I have just purchased my very first Trusca watch, the Blue Venture, and I did so because I like the look and the movement used. But to be honest, I've also been keeping an eye on the brand for so long that I was well overdue to purchase one. First though, I'd like to talk about the brand name since it is based on a Swedish word. There are some stories online about how Trusca relates to a Swedish tradition of paying for everyone's bill in the bar and then leaving. Having never heard of a tradition like that, despite my fair share of frequenting bars in Sweden, and also being well aware of how much it costs to drink in Sweden, I was very doubtful that this is a real tradition. I am still highly suspicious that this is something you might tell a foreigner to make them believe this is how you impress your new friends. So say what you will about the reserved Nordic types, but they do have a sense of humor. So the actual meaning of the word Trusca is to wander. And I don't mean hiking wander, but think more walking down to the local shop to get an ice cream in summer wander. So a nice and gentle walk in a relaxed fashion. I think this is as much of a nice fit for this and all of their watches as any other meaning, and it's what I've always assumed they were aiming for. So all is well, my dear non-Swedish speaking friends. As many of us in the watch world know, GMT movements have all of a sudden been highly democratized, with Seiko releasing very affordable GMT movements, but even more so, Miyota releasing an even more advanced movement that is sometimes described as a true or traveler's GMT. Call it what you want, it's an interesting movement that is in high demand, and I know John at Trusca managed to secure a fair few of them amongst loads of competition from other micro brands. So if you're ready to get stuck into this pretty watch and its interesting movement, then stick around and let's have a chat about it. So obviously I can't tell what your first impressions here are, but I think this is a very beautiful watch. You could even call it pretty. My family, that's well used to an ongoing parade of watches coming and going, commented that it looks expensive. And whilst it's not cheap, it's also not expensive at US $695, which I'd like to share immediately with you. It's also for once available to buy right now, not like many other Trusca watches that sell out immediately. So you can go and get one right now. But first a word on sizes. It is 38.5mm in diameter, 46mm lug to lug, 12.6mm thick, including the sizable box-style crystal with AR coating, which probably accounts for about 2mm of that, and it's a 20mm lug width. So in other words, it's about 4mm wider than the Rolex that went to Everest, and most other watches worn on various early expeditions to the Arctic and Antarctic. I mention this since smaller watches now are often dismissed, but we sometimes forget that some of the manliest of men exploring some of our final frontiers with not much other than a watch and some layers of cotton clothing wore watches that were small and often named things like Oyster or Prince. The case design here means that at least I think it wears well on my slightly above average 19cm wrist. So the dial here is obviously what you'll spend most of your time looking at, so let's get to know it. The Venture makes use of a lacquered dial to achieve its glossy finish. The brass dial blanks are first sprayed using an enamel paint before going into a specialized high temperature oven, after which they are hand polished until this sheen is achieved. The effect is quite impressive, and I'm a big fan of this summery blue shade. I'm really trying to get away from my usual black only policy, so this may be my second gateway drug after my recent rather flamboyant orange dial purchase. The indices are all applied, polished and lume filled, which we'll check out shortly. The attractive Trusca logo sits at just under the 12 position where it belongs, and it's nicely centered under the double indices 12, something that's so important to nail since any slightly off positioning here can never be unseen. The only other print is the GMT automatic just above the rather large date window at 6. Speaking of the date, it's framed and quite large, so the good thing here is that it's highly visible, and any traveler watch with a GMT function does need a date, so we're all good here. The GMT hand is also very easy to see in its slow 24-hour wander around the dial, so checking what the time is in the second time zone that you're keeping an eye on is no problems. Where I do think there might be a problem or two is in the overall legibility of the actual time. I'd say that in fairness, this has more to do with the color I chose than anything else. It's still worth mentioning that the seconds hand is very easy to lose altogether depending on the light, and the hour and minute hand with their mirror polish sheen do tend to disappear as well, particularly when they cross over with each other and the GMT hand. I'm not saying that it's super difficult to tell the time, and this is the sort of nitpicking that only watch reviewers would mention. The 24-hour dial that's operated through the top left crown that allows you to measure a third time zone if you want is also full of very small print that's hard to see, but that's okay. I don't know how many people actually track a third zone anyway, since it starts hurting the brain a bit if you do. So the Miyota 9075 movement operates similar to the Rolex GMT watches that have certainly inspired some of the looks here as well. The way this works is that you pull the crown all the way out, set the GMT hand in the position you want it to go, and then push the crown in one step where you can now move the hour hand independently. You can move that in both directions, which is also how you set the date. There's no quick date setting function here. It seems complex at first, but you'll quickly get your head around it. What this means is that when you reach your destination in another time zone, you simply move the hour hand back or forth to have the local time set, and your GMT hand stays put where it is. So if you had that set to your home time zone, you're now quickly sorted for checking the time at home, where it's obvious if it's day or night due to the 24-hour slow moving hand. Moving on to the case, its high polished sides and generally very Rolex OP-like muscular shoulders means it wears a little larger than what the dimensions suggest. This is a good thing. This might be a good time to mention that all Trasca watches are made from 316L surgical grade stainless steel, which typically measures about 200 HV on the Vickers hardness scales. However, after proprietary hardening treatment is applied, they are able to achieve a hardness rating of almost 1200 Vickers. This should hopefully mean that all the lovely details stay scratch and blemish free. The screw-in crown is easy to grip and signed with the Trasca logo. The 10 o'clock crown that operates the internal 24-hour bezel is also signed, but appropriately with a stylized globe pattern, which is a nice touch. I just wish this was screw-in as well, since it is quite easy to knock and therefore move the internal bezel, which is free-flowing with no step clicks. The back of the watch is clearly made to be engraved with minimum text and no peeking at the movement within, and that's okay. Moving on to the bracelet, and it is a good one. It tapers from 20 all the way down to 16mm, so it is quite comfortable to wear, and it has the same hardening as the case, so should look good for a long time. All the links are solid and follows the shape of the wrist, and it's also very easy to adjust yourself with screws that aren't too tiny. Opening the buckle, you're met with some perlage polishing, which I've never seen before, and whilst it's otherwise a fairly traditional fare with 5 micro adjusts and no quick adjust system, it is attractive and also signed with the Trasca logo. It is appropriate for this watch design, and I like it. The lume here is BGW9 Superluminova, and despite the slight surface areas available, they've done a good job overall, and nighttime viewing is reasonably easy. In December 2023, I have a big trip coming up. I'm going back to Nepal, and this time taking my youngest son to Everest Base Camp. And I've been looking for a watch to accompany me on this journey. Is this it? I think it could be. I feel it's the right size, has the right features, and I can also engrave it should we make it all the way up despite the altitude. That's always a challenge. Should you buy this watch even if you're not going on any expeditions? Absolutely yes. It is an absolute steal at the price with its features, great looks and comfortable wear. Even if you have doubts about the size, you've seen me wear it now and I'm both tall and large-wristed. So hopefully that gives you some reason to think it over. Well done, John and team. I might even pick up your bar tab at some point, but let's be honest, I'm more likely to wander off for an ice cream. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time.